Hello, my name is Diane Bouvier, and I chair the Ad Hoc Pedestrian Accessibility Committee. What began as a resolution by former City Council member Arian Smedley to address the inaccessible state of our sidewalks became a year-long journey for this city and for this committee. When we talked to people during the year and told them about this project, we often heard stories about people falling, breaking an arm, a shoulder, twisting an ankle. So it's not just accessibility, it's also safety. And when we did the survey, people not only spoke loudly and clearly about wanting better accessibility and safety, but also about wanting a better way of life, one that included using sidewalks to reach more destinations, like stores, the library, public transit, restaurants, or the bike path. They wanted shade trees and benches, signage, and more services closer to where they lived. Tonight we do our final presentation, highlighting recommendations that came from this community. We know these will cost money, and we believe the Athens community is ready to support having better sidewalks. So let's begin with Stephanie.
Athens is a unique place. 34.9% of Athenians walk their commute, the third highest rate of any city of any size in the entire country. And this is remarkable, not least of all because out of the 38 miles of sidewalks in this city, 9 are out of compliance with the ADA. Of 886 corners, 373 have problems ranging from missing a detectable warning grid to not having a ramp at all. And that doesn't even touch the 37 miles of sidewalks we need to build to give every street in Athens a sidewalk on at least one side. Given that Athens is out of federal compliance and therefore risking not qualifying for future federal funding, it might seem pretty ambitious that this committee is recommending going above and beyond federal ADA standards. But the ADA is the bare minimum required by law. Here's an ADA compliance crosswalk. And this is how you navigate it in a wheelchair or with a stroller or using a walker. You have to kind of go down the ramp into traffic and then veer back to the paint and then back out into traffic and up the ramp again. It's not great, is it? And here's the other direction where there isn't even paint. It's not very safe or comfortable or even logical. And we could build these crosswalks on every corner and be in compliance. Or we can go above and beyond to make places that are safe, intuitive, comfortable, and beautiful. Make high-quality places. Why give ourselves the bare bones when we can do better? Athens has all the ingredients to be a pedestrian paradise and every reason to embrace it. Our cute, walkable downtown is a large part of why parents feel comfortable dropping their kids off at university here. Imagine if we not just allowed, but encouraged pedestrianism beyond Court Street. Add in the economic, physical, mental, social, and environmental benefits we know increased walking brings, and then add one more fact. Sidewalks last a lot longer than roads, anywhere from 25 up to 80 years. Anything we build today will still be in good repair when my small children are pushing strollers of their own. So let's choose to live up to our progressive ideals and build our town so that everyone of all abilities and ages can thrive here. Because whatever we build, we'll be living with it for a long time. So let's do it, and let's do it right. Here's Rob.
So one of the big, I think, deliverables of this project, this committee, and this report is the recommendations. I'm going to talk a little bit about those, but there's 50 recommendations. That's a lot, and there's a lot of information in there in addition to the recommendations, but we tried to organize the recommendations by categories, as you see here on the screen. This is how they're organized in the report as it stands now in the draft you've seen. Like I said, there's about 50, or exactly, I think it is 50 recommendations in the report right now. About a third of those are in the last category, the recommendations for the city, or city staff or administration really is the focus there. And almost another third under the category of establish and communicate standards. So those are really sort of the two heavy categories here that have a lot of recommendations. So as far as some of the key recommendations, I'll talk about just a handful. Like I said, there's 50. There's way too much to go into detail here today in this presentation. But the recommendations are based on best practices, what the community came up when we were researching these topics, and also what we heard from the community. So you've heard a little bit about the survey. We had 784 responses to the survey, plus we had focus sessions and other things going on. We got a lot of community input, and that really helped us build this report. So that's really a key piece of the information we used. So the first item on this list, though, is implementing a list of prioritized sidewalk and accessibility projects that we've included in the report. So that's one recommendation. There's 37 items. There's a lot of information here. The top item in this sidewalk project list is the intersection you see on the left here, which are all probably familiar with, Union and Court Street, where there's the scramble crossing or the Barnes dance, if you want to use that term for it. But it's not exactly very accessible as it stands currently. And I'm going to play a video here that one of our audience members, Carolyn Lewis,
Court and Union Streets
is in.
are probably the centerpieces of Athens and the campus. However, it is terribly dangerous crossing these streets. The curb cuts are not really cuts. When you go up, you have to really pay attention to whether you're going to go backwards or forwards when you get there. And if you get to a curb cut that's not accurate or appropriate, you can find yourself going backwards in the chair. Also, many of the streets are not even, and as you can see here at the college bookstore, the street actually makes me go sideways, and I feel like I want to fall over. Going to the center of the street, there are too many holes, and you have to really avoid going to the center. And by the time I get to the middle of the street, it's already zero, so I could be dead. This is the #1 priority for the city to take care of because it's very dangerous, it's not safe, and again, it's the centerpiece of the town and the university. Though this is the priority, this is just the start.
All right, so thank you to Dr. Lewis for putting that video together and the support she had to do that as well. I'm going to go back to the slide deck here. So that intersection, we're all familiar with it, right? It's pedestrian friendly, right? I think of it as being that. It's designed more for pedestrians than probably any intersection in town, but it's still not very accessible. Now, to the city's credit, the city engineers know this is an issue and they have plans to already try and work on this intersection, improve the accessibility of this intersection. So this is a top recommendation, but we already know that the city already has this high on their list. So they have intentions to update this intersection to make it more accessible. So to go down the list a little bit here, looking at the second item, create a sidewalk program, and there's some sub-recommendations on this. This is really one of the cruxes of our report, is where other cities have tried to improve their sidewalk condition. They've had the same problems, same challenges we face here at Athens. It's not a new problem. But many cities, even in Ohio, have tried to fix this problem and tried to address it. And one of the things they've done usually is created a sidewalk program. So formalize a program to help fix our sidewalks. And that can be multifaceted. A couple of the items on here include enhancing the sidewalk condition assessments. So the engineers have done assessments, the planning office has done assessments previous to that. We would suggest that those should be updated for a complete inventory of the city's pedestrian infrastructure, and that the standards should be set up so that it's clear when they do these assessments whether or not a particular piece of infrastructure is accessible or not. They make that really clear. Right now it's not so clear in the results that they have in their assessment. Adopting and communicating sidewalk standards. So in the past there's been arguments about whether or not a particular piece of sidewalk needs to be replaced. In 2015, when the city did a sidewalk project on 3 streets in the city, it became a point of contention that the engineer said this needs to be replaced, and somebody could easily argue, well, I don't think it does. There's no standards the city has adopted to say exactly what it means to be accessible or for that sidewalk to be in good usable condition. And we recommend that the city establish those standards. So there's no argument anymore. It is or it is not something needs to be replaced or fixed. Establishing sidewalk funding sources, there's a number of recommendations about this and options we investigated. So that's also an important facet of this. Like Diane said, it's going to cost money. How the city can pay for this is a tough question. We have some ideas about that, but we don't have any real solutions. And I think that's where the real discussion about this will go down the road. Work with neighborhoods to develop 10-year plans, so engage with the communities on this. Adopt what is a multimodal design guide from ODOT. So they finally got on board with this just this summer and published a multimodal design guide for pedestrian infrastructure. And it's really well done. So I would say, to my opinion, surprisingly well done for ODOT. And I think it's something that the city should look at, make sure it's what they agree. But if they're adopting it, then it's going to help them get funding for their projects through grants for ODOT. And then the last item on this list is create a permanent pedestrian accessibility and bicycle committee. So there was something like this in 2010 that came up with the bicycle pedestrian plan that has been sort of the guiding document for the city to improve its pedestrian and bicycling infrastructure. And we suggest that that needs to be brought back, and really the work of this committee could be continued through creating a permanent committee that would be able to help implement and help work through the future when it comes to pedestrian and bicycling infrastructure in the city. And lastly, I'm not going to really cover this in much detail, but we did make a graph chart here to try and organize some of the recommendations. This is just over half of them in a format that you could easily try and consume, and say the upper left here, short range, high impact, or best bang for your buck. So you can do them quickly, you can get them done cheap. And so this can help focus the attention where you can get things done quickly, make some good, gain some good ground on trying to improve our pedestrian accessibility in the city. We haven't included this in the report yet, but we plan to add this for the final draft in some form. And next up is Solveig.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about money. This is the fun part. Not really. Okay, so Athens is fortunate to have a talented team of city staff that has obtained millions of dollars in grant funding to improve our infrastructure. Even though matching dollars are required for grants, they provide the majority of funds for streets and sidewalks. For example, the Stimson Avenue project, as you're aware of, and the upcoming West Union and West Washington Street projects. So a lot of exciting things have happened and are in the works. Note that ARPA funds are not accessible for this purpose, but may be in the future. So the current process, as many of you are aware, but unfortunately a lot of people don't know, is that the Ohio Revised Code and our city codes expect property owners to repair their own sidewalks. Unfortunately, in Athens and across the nation, such policies have failed. We are not meeting our legal and moral obligations to provide people with disabilities and, for the rest of us, with safe and passable walkways because of the systems we had. And if you'll just take a second to read the quote there, we'd really appreciate it. This is from the U.S. ODOT Guide for Maintaining Pedestrian Facilities. Note that the two common reasons cited by municipalities for not addressing sidewalk maintenance through special assessments are the amount of time it takes to do so and political considerations. So the Federal Highway Administration says cities should get creative with their fundraising. Their funding, excuse me, not fundraising. So we've identified some funding models for discussion. And the first one is the Sidewalk Replacement City Resident Cost Sharing Program. And so in some places, it's a blended funding model in which the city offers a 50-50 shared cost for property owners. The city then creates a program in which property owners coordinate their own sidewalk repairs. Of course, this would be overseen by code enforcement and making sure that the quality standards are met. And then, once it's done, they can apply for 50% to be paid by the city. The issues there. Some city staff believe this option would be too complicated, and special programs would need to be created to assist low-income homeowners who cannot pay, as they have in Columbus with a special city program for that purpose. Number 2, annual sidewalk assessment cost-sharing program, the sidewalk subscription. The city would divide itself into 4 sidewalk improvement districts based on current wards. Then each ward would coordinate sidewalk and pathway repair, allowing for complete street rehab using Athens city standards in a continuous corner ramp to corner ramp continuous ribbon. The funding model considers frontage, foot traffic, and property ownership. City staff did not specifically comment on this model, and in this model, there would be a flat fee for low traffic areas. Again, there's so much more to this, obviously. Another option that was raised was inside millage, and it's very clear from talking to Jill Thompson, the county auditor, that this is not an option at this time. Another one is countywide sales tax, which has been used in some areas, but again, this is one that we believe would not be accepted because county residents don't particularly want to pay for city sidewalks, unfortunately, but perhaps someday in the future that might be an option. Okay, another one is a tax levy, and of course, the administration is concerned about raising taxes for this one issue. However, we believe that the commitment to sidewalk repairs may be there based on the response to our outreach and the actually over 800 people who have been engaged in this process. So, we have to come up with some good ideas, and there's much more room for discussion there, which will be part of the implementation process. Okay, Athens Street Fund. Currently, there's over $3 million in that, but we know that streets are expensive. So this is an issue in that Athens has a street fund that's used for curbs, to replace adjacent sidewalks if streets are torn up, and occasionally to pave new sidewalks. Similar to funding prioritized street projects, Athens needs to create a process for funding ongoing sidewalk projects and have an account item specifically for sidewalks. Currently, it's one item, and there's some work being done that is not separated out. So, many cities have shifted to a model where the city administration manages citywide sidewalk remediation, new construction, and even snow removal. So, and this is a quote from the U.S. Department of Federal Highway Administration that really says many communities have shifted responsibility for sidewalk maintenance away from property owners in order to address a backlog of sidewalk maintenance, which we have clearly shown that we have. So it's certainly not a new concept with us. The bottom line, okay. Grants cover the majority of street projects, and the federal and state government has said that cities have to have an ADA transition plan, which is being worked on right now, I know. Or if we're not making progress on a plan and then implementing that plan, we will not qualify for grants to improve streets or sidewalks in the future. Therefore, our position is we really need to do something, come up with a solution to get our sidewalks up to code. And then I will bring it back to Diane. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvie. So we sort of inverted it. Usually we talk about the process at the beginning, but we thought we'd save it for the end. We've been here, this is our third time coming, fourth time giving some information about the sidewalk that we've been doing. But it's been a very extensive process. We've looked at GIS data, collected data, as you've seen in the report that was sent to you. If you looked at any of the images that quantify the sidewalks, the curb ramps, the places that are accessible and not accessible. We've reviewed city practices, and we've talked with city staff to try to get an understanding of what our current processes are. and hear what it is that people are working with and concerned about. We've looked at state, city, and federal codes and law. We adopted SPACE, which was our model that we used with our survey, and it stands for safety, proximity, accessibility, connection, and ease. And we believe all pedestrians are looking for more space. And it gave everyone a common language and a framework to think about sidewalks. We conducted the survey, and we had 784 responses. 783 of them were really interested in us improving sidewalks. One said, "This is a really biased survey, not for it's not anything to do that for drivers." And we're like, yes, that's true. It was not. But there were so many comments saying, sidewalks, we really want to have better sidewalks. And the focus groups were really telling of what was important. I thought for the focus groups, the thing that stood out to me when I was doing them was, for all the comments that I heard when I did the disability group about I just want to get there, was like the phrase. And it wasn't about, I want shade trees, and I want benches, and I want to look at artwork, and it was nothing to do with the environment. It was, I just want to get there. And when you realize some people can't get there, then you know we need to do something about it. And that's the minimum. We researched funding options, and then we drafted the plan. So the message is clear. If you haven't you're gathering this, I'm sure. Athens walkers and rollers want space. Sidewalks are a public good, so it has this interesting combination of individual property owner responsibility, but also the city has a responsibility to make sure our sidewalks as a continuum meet the ADA. So they have the enforcement ability, but not necessarily the time or the will to make that happen, because it is very time intensive to use our code enforcement process to fix sidewalks. But it is a public good, which means that it's something as a public we all use. Our current processes and funding are not enough, and we need something that will provide long-range funding. This isn't a 2-year project and then we're done. This is a long-term project. So what we need is a commitment from both the city leadership, city council, and the community to make this happen. And it's time. We want our sidewalks to be accessible. It's a moral imperative that we build the future that we would like to have, and do more than just the minimum. So I wanted to thank the City Council for taking this up and appointing a committee, and for all of the work that people have done and that city staff have done. And you received copies of our report, and we're hoping if you have comments that you'll just make them in that Google Drive draft by February 1st. The Voinovich School, some experts at the Voinovich School have agreed to help with final editing and formatting. We're hoping we'll get everything finished by March. So you have a draft version, in essence. But this is just the first step. There really is a long way to go. It's not like this is done when the report is done. It's really important that it keep going. And so we also want to thank all of our survey respondents. We heard you. We listened. We read what you wrote. We want to make sure that your voices continue. And I personally want to thank the committee. It was an amazing group of people to work with, and we all had different skills, talents, approaches, thoughts, and how we wanted to do this. But I think as a group, we really came together. So Steve Patterson, Mayor of Athens, I'd like to thank you for your participation. And Rob Dillock, Neil Ryan, who is our student representative, Solveig Speldness, and Stephanie Hunter. But they really did an amazing job. So I'm so proud of us as a group. So that's it.